This month, Steam decided to delist over 100 games in an effort to appease payment services such as Visa and MasterCard, who in turn were pressured by groups like Collective Shout, who wants to remove adult games of a, well, questionable nature. Now, you might have thought that they would stop there, because they were just removing icky games that you don't like, right? Brother, sister, what we're seeing here is a moral panic speedrun. We're on pace for a world record on Puritanism. Unfortunately, just after I published my previous video about the whole Steam situation, itch.io, a similar platform for indie titles, decided to completely delist all games in their not safe for work catalog, effectively censoring a huge portion of their games. And indeed, they were pressured by the very same groups that pressured Steam. As their own statement reads, "We have de-indexed all adult, not safe for work content from our browse and search pages. We understand this action is sudden and disruptive, and we are truly sorry for the frustration and confusion caused by this change. Recently, we came under scrutiny from our payment processors regarding the nature of some content hosted on itch.io. Due to a game titled No Mercy, which was temporarily available on itch.io before being banned back in April, the organization Collective Shout launched a campaign against Steam and itch.io, directing concerns to our payment processors about the nature of certain content found on both platforms. Our ability to process payments is critical for every creator on our platform, and to ensure that we can continue to operate and provide a marketplace for all developers, we must prioritize our relationship with our payment partners and take immediate steps towards compliance." They also explained in a recent update on their FAQ why they decided to remove all not safe for work content. And I gotta say, this FAQ reads like somebody trying to explain why they had to kill their childhood pet. It was for the greater good, Timmy. Why was itch.io's response greater than Steam's? The difference in our responses stems from the difference in our platforms. Steam is a closed platform where every product page is approved before it appears on the store. Because they were generally aware of the content they host, they could identify and act on specific pages. Itch.io is an open UGC platform with over 2 million product pages. Anyone can publish content at any time with minimal barriers. We could not rely on user-provided tagging to be accurate enough for a targeted approach, so a broader review was necessary to be thorough. Additionally, itch.io is a small company both in team size and in transaction volume compared to a company like Steam. We have limited ability to push back. If we lose our ability to accept payments from a partner like PayPal or Stripe, we impact the ability of all creators to do business. Losing PayPal, for instance, would prevent us from sending payouts to many people. Our actions were taken to protect our payment processing abilities for as much of the platform as possible. So, in a nutshell, Itch just aren't able to track all the games uploaded to their platform, and so in an effort not to be completely demolished in terms of revenue and being able to pay out money to their developers and users, they decided to completely delist all adult games. Imagine running a platform that's open to all creators and then getting nuked by Karen from Protect the Kids who happened to find a weird visual novel. Now, this statement by itch.io was also reinforced by Collective Shout, you know, the original offenders, as they said, "In response to false claims and misinformation about our campaign, we're setting the record straight. Some have asked why we involved payment processors, and others have claimed us that we are responsible for itch.io removing all not safe for work content. We raised our objection to games on Steam for months, and they ignored us for months. We approached payment processors because Steam did not respond to us. We called on itch.io to remove games that we argued normalized violence and abuse of women. Itch.io made the decision to remove all not safe for work content. Our objections were to content that involved sexualized violence and torture of women." So according to Collective Shout themselves, they didn't actually tell itch.io that they were supposed to delist all adult games, only ones of a very specific nature. In essence, they claim that they only wanted to remove the bad porn games. But to no one's surprise, they hit it with a shotgun instead of a scalpel. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what Collective Shout says here, because intentions don't mean shit when you're setting fire to the whole neighborhood and calling it arson prevention. Because they managed to convince several payment processors to essentially pull out of major platforms. And so what they've done here is that they've lit a match that threatens to burn down gaming as we know it today. They have opened the floodgates for other lobbyist groups to pressure payment providers and banks to not provide their services to certain platforms, simply to further their own agendas. Now, the user DudeDuck on Reddit recently contacted Visa surrounding the censorship situation, and when a guy named DudeDuck becomes the last line of defense between free speech and corporate chokeholds, you just know that we're living in a fucking simulation. Anyway, the response that DudeDuck got from Visa is probably one of the biggest gaslighting responses I've seen in recent memory. Hello, Redacted. Thank you for reaching out and sharing your perspective. As a global company, we follow the laws and regulations everywhere we do business. While we explicitly prohibit illegal activity on our network, we are equally committed to protecting legal commerce. If a transaction is legal, our policy is to process the transaction. We do not make moral judgments on legal purchases made by customers. Visa does not moderate content sold by merchants, nor do we have the visibility into the specific goods or services sold when we process a transaction. When a legally operating merchant faces an elevated risk of illegal activity, we require enhanced safeguards for the banks supporting those merchants. For more information on Visa's policies, please visit our network integrity page on visa.com. Thank you for writing, Redacted Visa Webmaster. So according to the Visa spokesperson here, they do not moderate content unless it's illegal. But the thing is, that's exactly what they did with both Steam and itch.io. Even if it's indirectly through groups like Collective Shout. In any case, DudeDuck here isn't the only one who has reached out to payment providers like Visa, because there's been a concerted efforts by thousands of people like you guys watching to force Visa and MasterCard to reverse their decision, and according to tons of people, these companies have been so swamped by both calls and emails that it might even affect them financially. Because if you've ever worked in customer support before, you'll know that long queues and endless emails can actually affect the company really negatively, because it gets much more difficult to help actual customers. Like, a single pissed off grandma asking for a refund can ruin your entire Tuesday. Multiply that by Reddit and 4chan and you have a corporate headache. No, a corporate migraine. Now, I generally don't condone this type of behavior, but this stuff actually works. And it's the same type of pressuring tactic that Collective Shout used in the first place, and unfortunately, because Visa and MasterCard decided to fold to a previous group, they've now opened themselves up to these types of concentrated efforts. Like we say in Sweden, om du ger dig in I leken får du leken tåla, which roughly means, if you want to be in the game, then you have to suffer like all the other players. Now, this is not the only way that people out there are combating this new age of censorship. There's also a petition that started barely a week ago, and it already has almost over 200,000 signatures. And well, the petition pretty much spells it out for you. MasterCard and Visa are interfering with legal entertainment, often under pressure from advocacy groups who want to censor what they deem problematic. We demand an end to the censorship of fiction and the right to choose the stories we enjoy without moral policing. MasterCard and Visa have increasingly used their financial control to pressure platforms into censoring legal fictional content. Entire genres of books, games, films, and artwork are being demonetized or deplatformed, not because they're illegal, but because they offend the personal values of executives or activist groups. This behavior is not just overreach, it's blatant hypocrisy. These same payment processors allowed platforms like OnlyFans to operate with minimal oversight, despite multiple credible reports and lawsuits alleging the presence of real sexual abuse content involving real-life minors. That is a criminal failure of responsibility. Yet when it comes to entirely fictional depictions, these same companies act swiftly, shutting down creators, restricting access, and acting as global censors. The pressure to do this is often fueled by advocacy groups routinely campaigning against adult-oriented content like Collective Shout, even when it's fictional, legal, and clearly labeled for mature audiences. Let's be clear, these activist groups do not speak for everyone. Adults are capable of choosing what they want to watch, read, and play. If someone doesn't like a certain type of entertainment, the solution is simple: walk away. Nobody is forced to engage with content they find offensive, but they have no right to dictate what others are allowed to enjoy, especially when it's within the bounds of the law. Fiction is not reality. Sex sells, and consent, artistic expression, and market freedom must be respected in any healthy democratic society. We demand that MasterCard, Visa, and their pressure partners stop censoring legal fictional content that complies with the law and platform standards, reject influence from activist groups that promote moral panic or misrepresent fiction as harm, be fully transparent about content restrictions and the rationale behind them, protect creators' rights to make legal adult content, and ensure a fair appeals process for any penalized media. Let creators create, let consumers choose. Payment processors and activist groups should not be cultural gatekeepers in a digital age. Sign this petition to defend free expression, consumer choice, and artistic integrity. Now, as much as almost 200,000 signatures in less than a week is pretty impressive, the blowback is even more immense. We have the UK games industry trade body, UKIE, and the International Game Developers Association, whom both have joined the fight against censorship. The UKIE said to gamesindustry.biz that the UK games industry champions creative freedom while taking its responsibilities to players seriously. Clear and consistent age ratings are a crucial part of helping people make informed choices about the content they engage with. That's why UKIE strongly supports the use of robust classification systems like PG across all platforms, including those hosting adult or experimental content. This ensures that content is labeled appropriately, that younger audiences are protected, and that creators can publish with transparency. We believe payment providers and platforms alike should have confidence in trusted age rating systems and the enforced mechanisms behind them. And according to GameDeveloper.com, IGDA said in their own press statement that adult game delistings is a form of creative suppression. Continuing with, developers report games being delisted or hidden despite prior approval or long-standing presence on those platforms. The lack of transparency around enforcement criteria, sudden shifts in policy, and an absence of appeal pathways leave creators with no clear path to compliance or recourse. Games that feature consensual adult content, including queer, kink-positive, and romantic narratives, are easily targeted under vague or overly cautious enforcement, often forcing developers into silence or self-censoring because platforms fear perceived risks associated with hosting legal adult content. As I mentioned in my previous video, developers all around the world are gonna get really scared by this and hold themselves back from making the true, full vision of the product that they want to make. Our advocacy focuses specifically on developers creating consensual, lawful, and ethically developed games, and we support clear, consistent content policies, not vague or overly broad censorship. Games, like any medium or artistic expression, can explore themes of intimacy, pleasure, trauma, or identity. When created ethically and distributed legally, these works deserve to be evaluated fairly, transparently, and contextually, not swept aside due to stigma or third-party pressure. Many of these same games already follow established rating systems and content warnings, including ESRB and international equivalents. Developers are using existing tools to clearly communicate content, set expectations, and responsibly age-gate their work. The issue is not a lack of safeguards, but a lack of proportionate, informed, and transparent enforcement. We urge platforms, payment processors, and industry leaders to engage in dialogue with developers and advocacy organizations. We welcome collaboration and transparency. This issue is not just about adult content, it is about developer rights, artistic freedom, and the sustainability of diverse creative work in games. Furthermore, we call on peer organizations and publishers to stand with us in protecting ethical creators from harmful overreach. Communicate your concerns of financial censorship and make your voice heard. So what we're seeing here is a massive response from both gamers and developers all around the world. And it's really good to see this many people fight against this type of censorship. But unfortunately, this issue isn't just tied to gaming. You might have heard that the UK government is introducing a new set of laws called the UK's Online Safety Act, which demands platforms like Discord, Twitter, or X, YouTube, and many others to ID their users in some way. With YouTube now introducing an AI that will try to approximate your age depending on your behavior. Yeah, not at all dystopian. Said no one. And you might be saying, oh, but I don't live in the UK. I'm not affected by this. Wrong again. Because the US is also introducing their own version called the Kids Online Safety Act, and as much as I'm all for protecting kids, we're once again finding ourselves in a situation where groups of people are weaponizing the age-old saying, but what about the children? You know, every authoritarian law ever written starts with this sentence. Won't somebody think of the children? Yeah, maybe don't start by giving your kid a smartphone at 9. Parents, what the fuck are you doing? What's going on right now is very worrying. We're witnessing in real time a new age of censorship that is going to change the internet and gaming forever. And for gaming in particular, I'm absolutely sure that publishers and studios out there are gonna rein themselves in and really have to look closely at what they publish and release because they don't want to anger Visa, MasterCard, and these pressuring groups. I've said this before, we're gonna see games like Cyberpunk 2099 No Sex Edition, Baldur's Chastity, Mass Respect, Stellar Blessed Be Thy Maiden for I Have Not Sinned, and Grand Theft Morals V. So many AAA, AA, and indie games are in a real danger zone here of becoming watered down shells of their former selves. And if you oppose this, if you think that mature and adult games should exist in this space, as long as it's not illegal, then make sure to make your voice heard. Contact your local representatives. Contact the services you use, like Visa and MasterCard. Sign the goddamn petition. Do something. Don't just sit there and do nothing, because if you don't, then some of your favorite games might not even exist in the future. Now have a great day. Mr. Holton signing off.